Hello everyone, welcome to our last study video for our final or our midterm that will be coming up. Chapter 2 is going to take place on Thursday. So here are some new problems that come from your Chapter 2 test. When I say new, I mean that they're things that really don't show up in our Chapter 1, Appendix A, or Appendix B. They're kind of unique to Chapter 2, and so I want to make sure that I'm covering these problems. You may also want to go back and look at our Chapter 1, Appendix A, and Appendix B, but I think if you can do, I believe we've got 4 problems up here, you should be set for our Chapter 2 midterm exam. All right, so in this one, they give us a point. They say the point -2, 6 is on a line, so we're talking about a line. So we know we have something linear with a slope of 3/4. It says that the point -8k is also on the same line. What is the value of k? And to show our work. So with this, we're going to think back to that really important equation that goes with linear functions. When you think linear functions, you should be thinking y equals mx plus b. In this problem, what they're asking us to figure out is what k has to be. So when we look at this function, we want to fill in the things we know. We know, in this case, we know what our slope is, and we have the point -2, 6. And so when we plug that in, our y is going to be 6 is equal to our slope of 3/4. We have an x of -2. But we don't know what b is, and so we're going to need to know what b is in order to find our point later. So when we do this, we're going to have 6 is equal to, let's see, that should be -6 divided by 4, which is really just -1.5 plus b. So what I'm going to do is take that 1.5 and add it to both sides in order to solve for b. So we're looking at 7.5 is equal to b. So now we can take and fill in our y equals mx plus b. Y is going to be equal to our 3/4 x, and then now we have a b of positive 7.5. We can now take and solve for k. So k is our y. So k is equal to 3/4 times -8 plus 7.5. So k is equal to 3 times -8 divided by 4. It's going to give me a -6 plus 7.5. And so k is going to be equal to 1.5. All right, so with this one, you had to know that we're talking about a linear relationship, a line. So we're going to need to use our y equals mx plus b. So we didn't know what b was, and so we took and solved for b. And then once we knew it, we had created a new equation of that line, and we were able to solve for our unknown, which in this case was k, for our y value. Moving on, we've got a nice fun word problem. It says the number of fans in Lambeau Field after a Packer game decreases at a rate of 10% per minute after the end of the game. There were 96,782 fans attending last Sunday's game. So that's some information we know. What it wants us to do first is to write an equation to represent this situation if x is minutes after the game ended. So they're telling us that x has to represent the number of minutes. We're looking at a decay problem, and so we're really looking for something y equals abx. And so where b is our rate, we know that x is going to represent the number of minutes, and a is our starting value. So when we plug it in, y is equal to our starting value, which we know to be 69,782 times our rate. So now this is a decay function. If it's decay, because fans are leaving, so the number of people in the stadium is going to continue to decrease. And so we're looking at a number that's going to be less than 1. How we figure that out is it's going to be 1 minus 0.1, or our 10%. So we're taking a whole 100% and we're subtracting away 10%, which when we do that, we're left with 0.9. So when we simplify, 90%, and then for every minute. In part B, it wants us to figure out how many fans are left after 8 minutes. So, all we need to do is take it and plug in our 8 for x. So, when we do that, we're going to take 0.9, raise it to the 8th power, and multiply that times our starting value. And you should get that y is equal to, and this is going to give us some decimals. Remember, we can't have parts of a person, so we're going to round it up to the nearest patron or the nearest fan. 30,000 39 fans. Now let's take a minute and think about it. We know that we started with 69,782 and we decreased. We have a decay function. Fans are leaving the stadium, so our number makes sense. For all intents and purposes, we can say that we're on the right track to getting that right answer, and we followed the correct process. So yes, our answer is going to be 30,039 fans. Next, we have a parabola. So they tell us that we have y equals, and that's supposed to be an x squared. My 2 got cut off. Y equals x squared is shown here. So that's what this guy is. It says, write the equation if the parabola is shifted 5 units to the left and 1 unit down, and then it is flipped over the x-axis and wider as shown in the graph. Alright, so really what we have here is the parent function, y equals x squared. And what we're going to do is we're going to move it, we're going to shift it, and we're also going to stretch it out. So when we look, we can see here we've kind of picked a point. And so let's think about what's happening. So first let's talk about the shift. So we know we had to shift 5 units to the left. So if we're moving 5 units to the left, what we should be thinking is the quantity x plus 5 squared. And then did we go up or down at all? Well, it says that we had to shift 1 unit down, so we'll subtract 1. The piece of the information, we're not quite done yet, because remember how we talked about it getting wider? And so we're interested in finding out what a is going to be equal to. And so our goal is to figure out what a needs to be in order to find the complete equation. So you can see here we selected the point -3, -3. All we're going to do is take that and plug it in. So we know that y is equal to -3 times a, -3 plus 5 squared minus 1. So we'll take that, we'll get 2 squared minus 1 is going to give us 3. So we're looking at, oh, sorry, that was really bad. So we're looking at, we're going to have 4a, that's our 2 squared times a, minus 1 is equal to -3, so we'll add 1 to both sides. And so we'll have -2 is equal to 4a. When we divide both sides by 4, we find out that a is equal to -1/2. And so now we can complete that equation. Y is equal to -1/2 x plus 5 squared minus 1. All right. And a good way to check that is we should be able to plug in all the points we see on that graph and get them, and what we plug in should come out correct. If it doesn't, we have a problem, it might need to go back and check. All right. Next it says to write the equation of a parabola in graphing form. So in graphing form, really all that means is what we're going to do is we're going to take and factor it by completing the square. Yay, completing the square. Y is equal to x squared plus 10x minus 30. So what we're going to do is we're going to take and rewrite it. We know that when we complete the square, we want to have x plus something squared. Then we have our minus 30. So when we do that, we need something. We're going to take our 10. We'll follow 10 divided by 2, which is going to give us 5. And then we're going to take 5 and square it, which is going to be equal to 25. So 2 parts of that are important. When we take and divide it by 5, that tells me, or sorry, when we take and divide it by 2, 10 divided by 2, that tells me the number that needs to go in my parentheses. So I need to have x plus 5 squared. And then that 25 is really important because it tells me how much I need to subtract away from the same side. We've essentially just, in order to complete that square, to have the quantity x plus 5 squared, we've added 25 to the right-hand side, and we want to keep it the same. We don't want to change its meaning. So if we add 25 when we complete our square, we're going to want to subtract it away so that it's the same expression. So then we'll simplify. Y is equal to the quantity x plus 5 squared minus 55. And it is now in graphing form. Let's see, I believe that completes it. Yes, so we've come to the end. Hopefully if you found this helpful. If you still have questions, please feel free to come in and see me and talk to me a little bit more about what I was doing in the videos. Hope it's helped you out, and remember to keep going back over those old tests. All right, happy studying.